Good
Hey, good
morning.
morning, Chris. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Um, Today we're going to talk about. Oh, actually, happy early Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Right. So, if you're watching this live, Thanksgiving is coming up on next Thursday, and this is a big Thanksgiving because a lot of people haven't seen each other in years. Actually, years because of the pandemic, and with vaccinations and things are turning around, things are starting to open back up again. So they're expecting a lot of travel, and a lot of people are going to be coming back home for the first time in a long time. So, what can we expect? I guess in terms of um, the celebrations that may occur.
Yes, Michael. Thanks for asking that question. We had some questions from some viewers about how to handle certain aspects of the coming holidays, and the holidays, especially Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving starts a time when law enforcement is out on the road um, in an increased presence. And what they're looking for is the people who are drinking and driving. And drinking and driving, as we know, is really, and when I say drinking, I mean drinking to excess is never okay if you're driving a motor vehicle anywhere, and specifically in the New York metropolitan area where you and I practice. Um, the uh, the bottom line is that we all have an obligation, a legal obligation, and a an obligation to ourselves and our loved ones to keep an eye on what we're doing, and that involves consuming alcoholic beverages, especially if we've driven somewhere either before, during, or after we've consumed alcoholic beverages. And this Thanksgiving season starts what you and I know to be that season that runs through New Year's and basically through the Super Bowl as well, where wherever you are, and especially in the New York metropolitan area, law enforcement does things like sets up DWI checkpoints, has an increased presence out on the road, and they're watching vehicles that are going by. And so the first thing that I tell people is your motor vehicle has to be in perfect shape. You have to have your lights working. You can't have busted tail lights and things like that, or a headlight that's out. And you can't be doing things that you sometimes would get away with doing, like driving too fast. You know, when I say too fast, over the posted speed limit. Um, so if the speed limit says that the speed is 40 miles an hour, you can't be saying, well, that means I can really do 60, because that may have worked for you at other times, but it certainly is not going to work this holiday season. And as you just indicated, the uh, police presence is going to be out on the road.
So why is it that people are going to be or police are going to be more active during especially maybe the Wednesday before Thanksgiving? Why is that?
Because as you and I both know, and as everybody who's watching knows, that tends to be the biggest travel day in this calendar. And they know that not just people going to airports, but people going to parties, people going to bars, people home from colleges, people visiting relatives, things like that. And as you just indicated, Michael, uh, people haven't been able to do that in the last couple of years due to COVID. Um, and so they're going to be doing it with a real increased frequency this year, and everybody's on high alert for that.
Right. So for just so it's clear, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is actually the biggest drinking day of the year. And a lot of people are surprised to hear that, but it actually makes sense if you think about it, because the Christmas holidays are often aligned with Jewish and maybe African holiday seasons. So not every kind of the days don't always match up, but the Thanksgiving is always on the last Thursday of the year, and the last Thursday of November, and the Wednesday is when usually, like you just said, a big travel day. So um, let's talk about kind of some of the issues that we see occur a lot, especially on the Wednesday before. So we have a lot of kids coming home from college, a lot of friends coming back and visiting, and so maybe they're going to go out and drink. Maybe they're going to go to a bar. So, if they do have a few, how do they know they're okay to drive?
Well, there's an ad campaign that's been going on the last few years that buzzed driving is drunk driving, and it
Hmm.
really points up what I have seen in a progression in 35 years of doing this, which is 35 years ago, the police and any member of law enforcement was not nearly as aggressive in pursuing DWI cases as they are now. So you really have to check yourself, and it's not a time to start deciding that you're going to engage in new drinking habits, or that you're going to start drinking for the first time, or that you're going to be drinking something that you've never drank before. Um, it's a good point that people make, that Uber and cabs are much less expensive than hiring you and I, and paying legal bills and the fines and surcharges and the things that can happen to your insurance if you make that mistake. I mean, it's really a time when you've got to say to yourself before you go out and before you start drinking that you're not going to get crazy, which we've all been in that stage in our lives where we've all decided that I'm going to go out and see my buddies at the local bar, and uh, the next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And are you okay to drive? That's not the time to start asking yourself that question. It's the time to start asking yourself that question is before you start drinking. And when you say to yourself, if I'm going to be driving a motor vehicle, um, I've got to be very, very careful. And, people use their own matrix for the size of the person, the weight, the body weight, what the person has had um, to consume as far as food, the type of alcohol they're drinking. All of that works into a complex uh, matrix. But at the end of the day, you've still got to say to yourself, and it goes without saying, it also involves any medication that you're on, because people tend not to read the label on the medication, but the medication label will often say, do not take this medication if you're consuming alcoholic beverages, or don't consume alcoholic beverages if you're taking this medication. So um, the we'd much rather have people be able to go out and enjoy themselves. And if they do realize that they've had too much, Uber and cabs are available today. They weren't available years ago. And so there's really no excuse for somebody to get arrested for DWI anymore, because they have other options on how to get home. So,
Right. So what if you're not out to a bar, maybe you're over, you're having people over for a Wednesday, and it's late in the night. You got to get up early to to get all the Thanksgiving stuff done, and someone who's been at your house has had a couple of beers. You weren't really paying attention because there's so many people. Um, they're clearly over the limit and they drive. Could I be held responsible or for this homeowner, could they be held responsible for what may or may not happen?
yes, you as the social host can be held responsible for any accidents that result in injuries to third parties that are caused by people who are consuming alcoholic beverages at your house. So, yes, you can. And you do have an obligation to keep track of people in your social network who may be visiting with you and may have had too much to drink alcoholic beverage wise. So it's a time for celebration, but it's also a time where, you know, you have the same obligation that someone who owns a bar or a tavern or a restaurant that serves alcoholic beverages has. And we call it in New York, we call it social host liability. And there is a social host liability in New York. So you do have to take that extra step. And people say, well, I don't have to do that. The person's an adult, they can do it on their own. But it just doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah. So, it's a good time. It's happy. It's a happy time for a lot of people, but there's a lot of trouble when it comes to celebrations. And so if you find yourself in a situation that one of those that we discussed, if you were having a criminal or a DUI matter, is there a good number people can call to talk to you?
Michael, the number at the bottom of the screen, people can call those numbers or just call our cell numbers, 914-400-8379, any hour of the day or night, and it'll be answered.
All right. So with that, we'll say, be safe, enjoy the holidays, and we'll pick this up after the Thanksgiving.
Yes, thank you, Michael, and I hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving and a safe
right.
Thanksgiving.
Exactly.